Opens up talking about attention and higher learning. So attention is starts by talking about how attention selects stimuli for processing. And attention processes by which is the process by which we select or focus on one or more specific stimuli, either sensory phenomena or internal cognitive processes, for enhanced processing or analysis. So it's accompanied by arousal, which is related to the attention due to non-selective properties. So it's what's innate in us, so level of alertness of an individual. So there's overt attention, which is attention in which the focus coincides with sensory orientation, so what you're paying attention to, or covert, which is attention in which focus can be directed independently of sensory orientation, so regardless of what you're looking at. So there's this thing called the cocktail party effect. That's the selective enhancement of attention in order to filter out distractors, such as listening to someone at a party. So when you're very close to someone having a conversation, you can filter out background noise, other people talking, and the music, and etc. But there are limits on attention. So the spatial origin of sound, the movements of the speaker's face, and the unique tone help you to focus on these things, but they were excluded when studying the cocktail party effect. So on studies, they use this thing called dichotic presentation, which is the simultaneous delivery of two different sounds to the left and right ear. So it's through a thing called shadowing, which is a task requiring subjects to focus on one of those things during the dichotic presentation. Subjects were able to accurately report hearing in the attended ear, so whatever ear they told you to listen to, you could report what was going on, but very little in the non-attended one, even if it was something specific like their own name. Cocktail party effect isn't limited to hearing or visual because visual tests can also be done. So if you ask to focus on one of two overlapping videos, the attended one can be described while the not attended cannot. And this is called inattentional blindness because it's a failure to perceive stimuli that seems so obvious as to be impossible to miss, but we still miss them because we're looking at something else and attended to another thing. Divided attention tasks are tasks in which the individual is asked to simultaneously focus attention on two or more stimuli, so focusing on both those screens at the same time. And since attention is a limited resource and very difficult to attend to more than one thing at a time, especially if they're spatially separated, the attention spotlight, or the shifting of our limited selective attention around the environment to highlight stimuli for enhanced processing. So you use this as you're trying to look at two different things to see one TV and the other TV, but you have to keep switching, which causes a decrease in attention to one and attention to the other, so you can't describe it as well. It's an adaptation that is common and allows us to focus our cognitive resources on one specific thing and just be able to more accurately determine that. So for mates, it's common for birds with mates to hear the song, or to find food. So like eyesight to find food, or for organisms that are possibly being hunted while they're attentive to something else, it allows them to also hear other things. So attention filters info early or late in sensory processing, and these filters result from limits of our attentional processes that result in a attentional bottleneck. So early selection models, the attentional bottleneck is at the beginning of the perceptual analysis, and it excludes unintended info even before we process what occurs. The late selection models are processing bottleneck that is imposed by the nervous system, which is situated later in the processing pathway, filtering only after substantial analysis. So after a lot of things, that's considered bottom up. So the perceptual load is the immediate processing challenge from the stimulus, so it's used to determine whether it is complex or simple, and thus if it's early or late stage. So if it's more simple, it's late stage, but if it's more complex, it's early stage. Attention strikes a balance between the early and late selection based on the task difficulty. So attention may also be endogenous or exogenous. So sustained attention tasks are tasks in which a single stimulus source or location must be held in the attentional spotlight for a protracted period. So they're using what the test that Helmholtz did, and it doesn't show how we shift attention from one thing to another. So instead we use stimulus cueing, which is a cue to the stimulus location that's provided before the stimulus. So endogenous comes from within, obviously. It's voluntary or top-down towards specific aspects of the environment. So symbolic cueing task was used to test this, which is used to test endogenous attention by a symbol that cues the location where the stimulus will appear. You stare at a point and press a key until there's a specific target stimulus, and you hit an arrow which way direction it goes. There's exogenous, which is bottom up, controlled by sensory inputs from lower levels of the nervous system rather than by voluntary conscious activity controlled by the forebrain. And it's measured by peripheral spatial cueing task, which is visual stimulus preceded by simple sensory stimulus, like a flash in a location where the stimulus will appear. And it draws you to a location, and the reaction time is measured and averaged. Endogenous and exogenous usually work together, relying on one another in an overlapping network. Like sound can improve detection of stimulus and like vision to see things. There's this thing called the inhibition of return, which is the phenomenon in which detection of stimuli at the former location of a cue is impaired from latencies of 2,000 meters per second or more. We use visual searches to make sense of the world. So a feature search is an effortless search for an item in which the target pops out right away due to unique attributes, so such as a red dress on your friend across the room. But more often we rely on conjugation searches, which look for an item based on two or more features, such as size and color, to distinguish the target from distractors. So assuming two people have a red dress on, you could also distinguish it by the length, the width, if it has frills, if it has sparkles, etc. It's tests using finding specific objects show that added distractions decrease speed of recognition. So it's done to say if I have an entire screen, it says find the green circle, but there's only one green circle in an entirely red board. It's easier to find that green circle than if I say find a square in an entirely red block. The feature integration theory is the idea that conjugative searches involve multiple cognitive feature maps or overlapping representations of the search array based on an individual stimulus attributes. And this addresses the binding problem, which is the question of how the brain understands individual attributes blended into a single object. And according to the FIT, simple pre-attentive stimulus attributes guide our scanning of the conscious perception and selection. And then it also uses these things called temporal resolution, which is required to see consequences of attention and tracks changes in the brain over time, and spatial resolution, which is the ability to observe the detailed structure of the brain required to see the mechanisms of attention. Thank you.